Okay, so picture this. There is a Ginza in Shinagawa. Not the Ginza, not the luxury shopping district in central Tokyo, with its flagship stores and designer boutiques and a history stretching back to the Meiji era. That Ginza is about 5 kilometers northeast of here. This one is different. This one is a neighborhood shopping street, a long, low, open-air corridor of butchers and fishmongers, and bakeries and izakayas, running for about 1.5 kilometers through a residential part of southern Tokyo. But it carries the name. And the reason it carries that name begins with a disaster, a pile of rubble, and a muddy road that nobody could walk through without losing their shoes. September 1st, 1923, the Great Kanto Earthquake. Magnitude 7.9. The death toll, including those killed in the fires that followed, exceeded 100,000 people. Large parts of Tokyo were destroyed. Yokohama was devastated. And Ginza, the symbol of Japanese modernization, one of the most European-influenced commercial streets in the country, burned. In the aftermath, the rebuilding of central Ginza began. The brick buildings that had defined the district, constructed in the Meiji era as a deliberate statement of modernity, were gone. The bricks were rubble, and rubble needed to go somewhere. Around the same time, in a low-lying area of what is now Shinagawa, a neighborhood called Togoshi had a persistent problem. The ground was wet. The streets turned to mud when it rained. Shopkeepers were trying to build a commercial strip, but the road conditions made it nearly impossible. Every time it rained, the whole thing became a swamp. Then, according to the story that has been passed down, the bricks from Ginza arrived. Unwanted rubble from the most prestigious street in Tokyo was brought to Togoshi and laid into the muddy road. The drainage improved. People could walk without sinking. And the street that had been paved with Ginza's debris took a name that reflected where those bricks had come from. Togoshi Ginza. What had been thrown away became the foundation of something new. And this place, this neighborhood shopping street in southern Tokyo, is said to be the original, the first of what would eventually become hundreds of neighborhoods across Japan to attach the word Ginza to their own local street, borrowing the prestige of a name from the rubble of the real thing. Around the same period, people displaced by the earthquake in the Shitamachi neighborhoods of eastern Tokyo and in Yokohama had moved to areas like Togoshi, setting up new businesses where they could. The earthquake had moved people, and the people made the street. Then, 1945. In May of that year, air raids struck southern Tokyo with devastating effect. The area around Shinagawa, including Togoshi Ginza, was hit hard. The street that had been built on the debris of the 1923 earthquake was itself reduced to debris. After the war ended, the process began again. Informal markets appeared. Daily goods changed hands. People who needed somewhere to buy food and clothing and basic necessities came back to the same street. Togoshi Ginza rebuilt itself for the second time. This is worth pausing on. By the time Japan entered its post-war economic recovery, this shopping street had already been destroyed and rebuilt twice, once after an earthquake, once after a war. Each time, the street came back in roughly the same place, doing roughly the same thing. During Japan's high-growth period In the 1950s and 60s, Togoshi Ginza reached its peak. The surrounding residential areas expanded rapidly. Families needed somewhere to shop every day. In an era before supermarkets and convenience store chains, a neighborhood shopping street was the infrastructure of daily life. Togoshi Ginza became what it was always trying to be, the kitchen of the neighborhood. Togoshi Ginza is approximately 1.3 kilometers long. For a single shopping street in Tokyo, that is an unusual length. But it was not designed to be 1.3 kilometers. Nobody planned it that way. The street is actually the result of 3 separate shopping associations, each with their own organization and their own identity. That gradually came to function as a single, continuous corridor. The length is not a plan. It is an accumulation. 2 railway lines cross through the middle of this street. Togoshi Ginza Station on the Tokyu Ikegami line and Togoshi Station on the Toei Asakusa line. Both stations sit near the center of the shopping corridor, with the street extending east and west. From that central point, either way you arrive, you step off the train, and you are in the middle of it. This, too, was not designed. 2 different railway companies placed stations near the same stretch of road, decades apart, for their own reasons. The result is that the street has 2 entry points, close together at its center, feeding people in from both sides simultaneously. Old agricultural paths, post-earthquake population movement, 2 railway companies, 3 merchant associations, low-lying ground that needed paving. Each of these things contributed to what Togoshi Ginza is today. The length, the density, the orientation, all of it is accumulated consequence, not intention. In recent years, Togoshi Ginza became a media destination. Food magazines, television programs, travel websites. The street was branded as a walking food market, a place to eat your way from one end to the other, croquettes being the signature item, part of a deliberate campaign by the shopping association to create an iconic local product. Weekend crowds grew. International visitors started arriving. And here, it is worth comparing what happened to Kichijoji. Kichijoji became Tokyo's most desirable neighborhood to live in. That ranking drove up property values, which drove up rents, which pushed out the independent shops, and jazz bars and record stores that had built the neighborhood's character. In the first place, the brand consumed the thing that created it. In Togoshi Ginza, that cycle did not happen, at least not at the same scale. Part of the reason is structural. The street was never a destination neighborhood in the way Kichijoji was. It does not have a large park. It is not particularly convenient to the city center. The people who come here on weekends come specifically for the shopping street, not to live nearby or to be seen. More importantly, the street still has its everyday function. The fishmonger, the vegetable shop, the butcher, the tofu maker, the stores that serve the people who live in the surrounding streets and come back every day are still here. The local demand acts as a counterweight to the tourist pressure. The street has 2 economies running simultaneously. Tourists come for the croquettes, residents come for dinner. That balance is not guaranteed, but it has held. In 1923, the rubble of one Ginza became the foundation of another. What was discarded in the center of Tokyo was used to build something in the periphery. A muddy road that no one could walk through became a street. A street became a neighborhood. A neighborhood was destroyed and rebuilt twice. And then it was discovered by television cameras and food bloggers and tourists with cameras. And somehow, it remained itself. Togoshi Ginza has been built from debris from the beginning. That may be why it is harder to destroy. If you made it this far, thank you. If you want to see more stories like this, from the parts of Japan that don't make it into the travel guides, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.